Are you going on safari? No. I'm going home. So yes, I followed the pack with everybody, and I've spent New Year's in the motherland, Ghana to be exact. This wasn't my first time on the continent or in West Africa, but this was a very transformative experience just because that welcome home always hits a little bit differently in the land from whence we came. The emotions shared on this trip were a mix of joy, sadness, rage, and gratitude for the sacrifice of the ancestors so that we could be here. I partied at Afrochella, I connected with old friends, I made new friends, I did a ton of shopping, I relaxed, and I brought in 2020 in the best way possible. So let's get into it. The Republic of Ghana is in Western Sub-Saharan Africa. It's bordered by Cote d'Ivoire in the west, Togo in the east, Burkina Faso in the north, and the Gulf of Guinea in the Atlantic Ocean in the south. In 1957, Ghana, previously known as the Gold Coast, gained their independence from Britain, led by Kwame Nkrumah, a revolutionary who transformed the country into a republic. In 2019, the Ghanaian government made a global invite to the diaspora for us to come home for a spiritual and birthright journey, for us to learn, fellowship, and to celebrate our African heritage. The year commemorated 400 years from when our ancestors were forcibly taken from the continent and enslaved across the Americas, notably when we first landed in Jamestown, Virginia in 1619. Now, the prep for Ghana travel is no joke, but it doesn't have to be daunting if you don't let it. In terms of vaccinations, one of the most important ones that'll determine if you're even walking into the country is yellow fever. Yellow fever is a virus transmitted by infected mosquitoes that is endemic in tropical areas of Africa and Central and South America. Large epidemics of yellow fever occur when infected people introduce the virus into heavily populated areas of high mosquito density and where most people have little or no immunity due to lack of vaccination. In these conditions, infected mosquitoes transmit the virus from person to person. So to ensure you're not doing that to cause an epidemic, many countries on the continent require you to show this bright yellow card that confirms you've been vaccinated. You'll need to either consult a doctor or look into a specific travel doctor who can administer this vaccine. I wish there was a way to get around that, but unless you want some random stranger sticking you in an airport, you're going to get that taken care of before you leave. Now, for your other vaccinations, the CDC recommends that you are up to date on your routine vaccinations, including measles, mumps, rubella, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, polio, chickenpox, and the flu. The CDC also recommends vaccinations for hepatitis A, malaria, typhoid, as well as hepatitis B, meningitis, cholera, and rabies. Check with your doctor to make sure you're up to date, or hit an urgent care or sometimes even your local drugstore to make sure you're all good to go and healthy before you hit the continent. And one pro tip I've definitely started doing more often is asking my doctor for antibiotics for traveler's diarrhea. Just thank me later. So the wonderful thing about flying into Accra is that there are direct flights from New York and DC. So in just about 10 hours, you can be on the shores of Labadi Beach getting your whole life. Now, those prices were expensive boots for New Year's, just like any other place would be at that time. But outside of major global holidays, it's actually pretty affordable for a long-haul international flight. And the best thing was it was a night flight. So you get on there, you can get a whole good night's sleep and be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and arrive in Accra in the afternoon. What's better than that? My accommodations, on the other hand, listen, I didn't pick it and it looked like a stationary staph infection, so once I could move, I did. Just know that when you're looking for your accommodations in a city like Accra, Accra is a bustling, modern, major city. And they have options from budget to luxury. So they have everything that can meet any price point or predilection. So if you are the type that is the, I don't care where we sleep, it's just a place to lay my head, understand that we're never traveling together and you can't come in my suite. Now, one of the the interesting activities that we did was we went to Caicum National Park and we walked in the Canopy Bridge. Now listen, I'm going to preface this with it was a great experience, but it was one of those things that I never need to do again. It's a challenging hike that peaks at the very high and very narrow canopies that are above the entire park. And I'm not afraid of heights, but they noted that these canopies have been tested by elephants. That has nothing on all these Americans stomping all their little ivy parks all through these things day after day. But even just getting to and from the canopy through the park was a unique experience. But please, please, this is not the time to be cute. Wear some sturdy shoes, pack some bug spray, a sweat towel, and some water, or you will regret it. Now, after the park, we went to Elmina Castle. Now, this was a moment that most of us equally dreaded and were excited about. Coming to these dungeons where our ancestors were held, many people talked about feeling the presence of the ancestors as we entered. I absolutely did. And before you're even able to process, you feel this overwhelming of emotion. We had a wonderful guide employed by Elmina that talked us through some of the atrocities that the ancestors endured. And the mood was very somber, the air was super thick, but most of us followed the adage of, if they could live through it, we could hear it. The most impactful moment for me was walking through the path through the door of no return. You had to go through this small hole that was constructed as such to accommodate the now emaciated bodies that were now coming through, and to prevent escape with the little bit of will that our ancestors may have had left in them before they got on the boat. But that will actually led them to those ships for a future unknown. The confusion, the fear, the pain, the humiliation that they must have been feeling was palpable in the walls. I wrote a very long post that day when I got back because it was just so emotional. I talked about how I shed so many tears as I walked through the path of the ancestors, forcing myself to breathe in the stifling air of the tight dungeons, touching the walls as I felt their energy touching back, a place that represented horror, death, and despair. Until now. We're back to reclaim what was ours. This is not Elmina. This is Enomansa, inexhaustible waters, its original name before the colonizers came. This full circle moment is so powerful for us because without their strength and resilience, we couldn't walk back through these doors to our home, empowered to tell them, thank you. To tell them that they didn't die. We're here because of them. The monsters tried to bury them, but we were their seeds. We also remember those who couldn't make the journey, those whose souls rest within the walls and in the waters. But the pride we have is knowing that we are the descendants of the survivors, the absolute strongest, the ones who endured countless atrocities for generations just so we could live. To honor their sacrifice is to strive for ultimate excellence. We owe it to them to be smarter, stronger, better than anyone who doubts us. We will never stop honoring you, and may you rest easy knowing that we will keep your memory alive in us. So when we're allowed, explore the continent, head to Ghana, and connect with your roots. It will forever change you.